Update, brought to you by Simcox Advocates, advising businesses and families since 1949. Visit simcox.com or call 690 300. Manx Radio's Update with Andy Wint.
Fast am I. Good evening. It's 5:30. This is Update for Wednesday, 28th of June, 2023 from Manx Radio. 30 minutes to look at the latest news on the Isle of Man. A background to that news and sport and business and Sea Watch and travel updates and the newsmakers in person. This evening, what's going on with our reserves? David Ashford's view. When will the air traffic controllers actually arrive at Ronaldsway? Maloo commissioners defer the golf links discussions. The first domestic abuse accused has been convicted. And the Island Games Triathlon team manager is excited at the prospect.
Man Benham for all your business and legal needs.
First of all, at 29 minutes ahead of 6 o'clock, the Update News headlines. Fast am I, Chanel Suku.
Fast am I. The island's Information Commissioner has quit his post, blaming a reduced budget. Ian MacDonald will leave his job on the 21st of July after more than 20 years. Island-based developer Dandara says it intends to produce a redesigned scheme for the Castletown Golf Links Hotel, which addresses inspectors' concerns. It follows a failed appeal to redevelop the area. And Manxman tennis player Billy Harris has progressed once more in the Wimbledon qualifiers after a 3-set victory over Hugo Gaston this afternoon. In international news, the business secretary says she is very concerned about the potential collapse of Thames Water. Britain's biggest supplier says it's in talks with shareholders about getting more funding. Ukraine says a man's been arrested on suspicion of helping Russia carry out a missile strike which hit a pizza restaurant. 10 people are dead, including several children. And debris from Titan sub, which imploded, has been brought ashore in Canada. The wreckage was collected from the ocean bed near the site of the Titanic. Those were your headlines. News at 6.
Man Benham. Contact us by phone, video call, email or face-to-face. We're happy to connect with you. Manx Radio Weather with Manx Glass and Glazing.
Goromaya, thank you, Chanel. From the Ronaldsway Met Office, there's no wind warning in operation for the North Irish Sea currently. State of sea is slight. And the 3-day weather, well, late sunshine today has ended a lot better than it started. A moderate northwesterly breeze, clear and dry through the night, down to 12 degrees. And for tomorrow, Thursday, Jordan will be dry with sunny spells, light to moderate westerlies, and 19 Celsius, overnight minimum 13. Into Friday, Jehenya dry at first, then rain arriving from the southwest Friday afternoon, top temperature 18 degrees. Tight on the way back in, high waters at 11 minutes past 8, sunsets 5 to 10 tonight, low water 24 minutes before 3 a.m, sunrise 12 minutes before 5, and high water tomorrow morning 27 minutes past 8.
Manx Glass and Glazing can supply and install single, double and triple glazing. Call 674 573 or visit the showroom on the Snugborough Trading Estate.
And a week today, it's Tynwald Day. One of the Isle of Man's former Treasury Ministers has yet again raised concerns about the Isle of Man's reserves. Douglas North MHK David Ashford was on Man in Line today discussing what he found troubling with the government's plan for spending.
I've got serious concerns because our reserve fund at the moment, I think, stands around about 658 million in the general reserve. But if you look at the pink book presented this year, that actually is going to dwindle down to the prediction now at the end of this administration to be about 241.4 million. Now that might sound a lot to a lot of people, but if you take some of the contingencies that happen across government, it'll soon disappear. And one of the problems is what those reserves mainly are being used for isn't one-off projects, it's to cover day-to-day spending, and that spending occurs year on year. So I really worry that we are getting to a point where the reserves at the end of this administration are going to be far, far too low compared to where they are. And even if they meet their financial plan, and at the end of this administration it's a balanced book, they'll have spent 200 million in reserves and be returning about 2 million a year to the reserves. So that would take 100 years to get us back just to the 400 million where in the 21 budget it would have been.
David Ashford, are we in trouble?
I don't think at this stage we are. And the reason I say that is I think as long as we start tackling it now, then there's not an issue. And this is what I raised in Tynwald with the Treasury plan. Now, I know since it's been mentioned the alternative is austerity. Well, what will actually cause austerity is if nothing's done during this administration about it, the next administration comes in and suddenly realises the reserves are massively depleted and they have to take drastic action in one go. What we need to be doing is we need to be looking at our tax strategy. We need to be looking at the level of income that we actually bring into the island, how we can generate that, and then also how the money is spent. So it's not just a case of one side or the other. We need to have an overall plan, and that's what I'm pushing for.
Whether you've been affected personally or you know somebody who has, you're well aware of the issues around air traffic controllers at the Isle of Man airport at Ronaldsway. So it's perhaps not surprising the Infrastructure Minister Chris Thomas MHK has been quizzed a fair deal on the matter in the House of Keys. Yesterday he provided Keys with more information about the training and provision of air traffic controllers at Ronaldsway.
Isle of Man airport currently employs a total of 14 air traffic controllers. In addition, there are air traffic services assistants, and some of the trainers who are recruited will come in to serve in that role as they become ATCOs. But we have 14 air traffic controllers in place. 10 are fully qualified and 8 are currently available for operational duty. So in other words, there are currently 4 air traffic controllers undergoing training at various stages. 3 of these are experienced controllers who have come from other airports, and 1 is a student air traffic controller. The minimum number of fully qualified ATCOs required to be operational on shift on a typical day in order to avoid intermittent closures during published opening hours is 6. So in other words, from what I've said, we're operating on a lower number at the moment. We need to do that because of the closures. The special factors, we devoted all of our resources to make sure that TT was the wonderful success it was, and we didn't want to be the people who let down the Isle of Man. So we're currently operating at less than 6, which is a number I've just said is a required number during a day. The department has recently concluded recruitment rounds for both student and experienced ATCOs. 3 student ATCOs are scheduled to join before the end of September 2023. 1 experienced ATCO has already joined in May 2023. The recruitment of the second is currently subject to the acceptance of an offer. We're thinking through how we can use virtual simulations to get round the on-the-job training, and that's something that we're talking with Treasury about. There are things that can go wrong with an airline. You do need good insurance this summer particularly. We've decided as council ministers that we're going to make a real focus on educating people to look after themselves at the same time as making sure that the budget's available to remediate the problems we sadly currently have in our air traffic control tower.
Update brought to you by Simcox Advocates, advising businesses and families since 1949. Visit simcox.com or call 690 300.
The first person to be prosecuted in the Isle of Man under new domestic abuse legislation will be sentenced in August. The story from Tessa Hawley.
Charlotte Rebecca Doherty of Ballacring Drive in Onken appeared at Douglas Courthouse yesterday. The 41-year-old admitted that her behaviour between the 4th and the 31st of January did or could have caused physical or psychological harm. Doherty changed her plea after previously denying the domestic abuse offence. She had been due to stand trial today. Doherty appeared at yesterday's hearing via live video link from the Isle of Man prison, where she spent the last 21 weeks. She listened as the prosecutor told the court the complainant in the case, her partner, had also been her carer who'd given up work to help look after her. He told police her mental health had started to decline last year and she'd started to talk to people online about religion, describing her as becoming a religious fanatic. This, he said, resulted in her demanding he study the Bible and preventing him from listening to his own music. She also accused him of infidelity and stopped him drinking and eating bacon. Describing her as some days being down the rabbit hole, he said she would swear at him just simply to get a reaction and made him hand over birthday money from his parents to charity. On the 23rd of January, she attacked him, pulling his hair, pinning his head down and biting him on the back. 8 days later, she hit the roof whilst he was using his iPad and hit him on the head with it before spitting in his face. She threatened to break the device and bit him on the bicep. The court heard he told police, "I started to fear for my own life." Social inquiry and psychiatric reports have been requested before Doherty is sentenced on the 1st of August. There was no application for bail and she was further remanded in custody.
The Isle of Man's triathlon team manager says he's excited at the prospect of what the athletes could achieve at the Island Games next month. Dewin Kinley explains how much quality he believes the 11-strong squad has, and also how the triathlon competition will have a slightly new look this year.
Probably looking at one of the strongest teams we've ever taken to the Games, so really excited about that. We've got 7 men competing and 2 women competing. Unfortunately, we couldn't get another female competing, but they're all racing at the moment, all doing really well, all hitting the performance of what they're looking at for the Games. So on the Sunday, on the first day of the event, there'll be the standard or Olympic distance race and a combined team event, which will be the fastest 3 from each team. And we've always run that event, or the Games have always run that event, but this time, for the first time, on the Friday at the end, one of the last events of the Games will be a mixed sprint relay. So it's 2 men and 1 woman in a team, and they all race and they all do the same distance and then hand on to each other. And a lot of people have seen this in the Olympics and in Commonwealth Games. A really exciting event to watch. It's an event where we have got that real mix, as you say. We've got some really experienced athletes, and we've got a really young 2 young athletes, first time at Games. We've got athletes there with experience from cycling previously, who've won medals in cycling, so we've got the experience of competing at Island Games. But I think for anyone who's been to an Island Games or witnessed any of it, it is a great event to be involved in. Everyone's proud to represent the Isle of Man. I've been involved and competed in probably about 8 or 9 different games now, originally in badminton, then in triathlon, and I think it's a thoroughly enjoyable week when you're there.
Sea Watch with the Isle of Man Steam Packet Company.
18 minutes before 6, Ben McCree departed Heysham at 19 minutes past 2. She'll be in the bay in the next 10-15 minutes or so, and on the link span in the next half hour. Departing this evening at 7:45, arriving in Heysham at 11:30, departing overnight at 2:15, and back to the island at 6 in the morning. The high-speed craft Manannan departed Douglas at 14 minutes to 3. She's on the link span by the pier head in Liverpool now, departing at 7:15 this evening, back to Douglas at 10 tonight. Tomorrow morning's departure, 7:15 high-speed craft Manannan to Liverpool, 8:45 motor vessel Ben McCree to Heysham.
Follow the Steam Packet on Twitter for the latest sailing information.
This is Update on Manx Radio, and the news from Maloo Commissioners has said they've deferred discussions about Castletown golf links to a private meeting. The clerk, Barry Powell, says the authorities supported the initial planning application, but will need to look at it again and seek advice on demolition notices before the board can move forward.
Well, essentially throughout the whole process, the Commissioners have supported redevelopment on that site. Now that this decision has been reached, we have always said that because there has been calls over the years for demolition of the site, so the planning has been exhausted. We'll now look at that again and decide on how best to go forward with it and take advice on that. We'll need to find out exactly how the process works, because as a board here, we've never actually ordered any demolitions in the past. So it's something that we need to take advice on how best to proceed, and then the board will make that final decision on whether to proceed or not, or how to proceed or not. As far as I know, DEFRA can issue them as well. The legislation is with the local authorities, so local authorities have the power, but also DEFRA do as well, so potentially they could come and order a demolition if they wanted to.
Manx Radio Business Briefing.
At 16 minutes before 6, with little corporate news to drive the market, traders indulged in profit-taking in mining stocks and also in Ocado, whose shares have been on a run since last week amid speculation it could be a takeover target for Amazon. Another spike followed when it emerged that Lingotto, the new fund backed by the Italian billionaire Agnelli dynasty, raised its stake in Ocado despite the online grocer having proved to be the biggest drag on its portfolio last year. The numbers in just a few moments' time. And remember, for a full daily market report, go to ramseycrookall.com. Diageo has sacked Diddy, a.k.a. Sean Combs, after the rapper sued the British drinks giant, accusing it of neglecting his tequila brand due to his race. Diageo announced the move move while responding formally to the lawsuit, which it asked to be dismissed. It said Mr. Combs' complaints were false and defamatory and made in an effort to extract money from the company. An attorney for Mr. Combs said Diageo was trying to distract from his claims. Diageo, which also owns brands like Johnnie Walker Whiskey, Guinness and Tanqueray Gin, said the relationship had been on the rocks since Diddy had failed to meet his promises to fund De Leon Tequila, which they bought together in 2013. Diageo said it had invested more than $100 million, £78 million in De Leon Tequila, and tried for years to salvage the broken relationship with Mr. Combs.
The Stock Market Report, brought to you by Ramsey Crookall.
UK and European equity markets climbed after tentatively breaking their losing streak. The US dollar rose, oil gave up its earlier gains, and gold rose. The numbers from Ramsey Crookall at the close in London. The FTSE 100 up 0.5% at 7,500. The DAX in Frankfurt up nearly 0.7% at the close at 15,954. Currently New York City, well, a short time ago, the Dow Jones Industrial down 0.25% at 33,832. The Nasdaq Tech Stocks Index up just over 0.33% at 13,604. And the S&P 500 barely upwards, 0.1% upwards at 4,378, but upwards. In the exchange markets, the British pound sterling trading at $1 26.3 cents, €1 15.8 cents, and 23 South African rand 59.7 cents. In commodities, gold slightly down 0.03% at $1,912 per troy ounce a short time ago, and a barrel of Brent crude up 1 8/10% at $74.05.
You've got an investment plan?
Yeah, Mike set it up.
But don't you need loads of money to do that?
Not this one. It's called Shearwater from Ramsey Crookall, and you pay in monthly as little as £100. So it's like saving regularly, really helping us invest in the future for a house, or the kids' education.
£100 a month? I could easily do that.
You should. The sooner you start, the better.
Invest in your future with as little as £100 a month. Shearwater from Ramsey Crookall, the island's investment specialist for 75 years. Call 717171 or visit ramseycrookall.com. Licensed and regulated by the Isle of Man Financial Services Authority.
The Mayor of Douglas City, Natalie Byron-Tier, says the new civic amenity site will benefit the eastern community. She says the new tip has been in the works for 4 to 5 years and will streamline waste management in Douglas.
So about 4 or 5 years ago, when the committee prior to the one I've recently sat on, the lease was coming to term on the existing site and options were explored as to how they would move forward with it. So the committee oversee the site and they run it. So they make all the decisions about how it will be operated, but the actual running of the site goes out for tender. So the structure now from the bearing on the existing site going to the new one in comparison, I would say the new site's probably 50% larger, and the access is via reuse and recycle and then onto residual waste. So it gives an opportunity for reuse items to be placed in that area. We also have 10 parking spaces including the 2 disabled, so 10 in total, because we were really restricted for parking at the old site, and we had to actually withdraw quite a bit recently because of space issues down there. So that's hopefully been addressed, and it gives people the opportunity to put things into reuse and recycle rather than at the current site where they were going up, and because it was easier to just unload once, they would quite often put everything into residual. I can't emphasise enough how much this is going to benefit the eastern community. You know, these 5 authorities have all worked together, and I've seen it myself the last 2 years working together, and at the forefront of the reasoning to do this has been how better to serve the community, and I think people should give it a chance before they make judgment and see how much better this is going to stream our waste management and how much easier this site's going to be used.
Update brought to you by Simcox Advocates. Manx Radio Sport.
Faster my Rob Pritchard.
Faster my. Good evening. Starting with tennis, and Manxman Billy Harris has progressed once more in the Wimbledon qualifiers after a 3-set victory over Hugo Gaston in Roehampton this afternoon. Harris suffered a 6-2 loss in the opening set but rallied back in a lengthy second set to eventually take it 7-6 on a tie-break. The third and final set was also a close contest between the pair, but Harris edged out his opponent 6-4 to move on to the next stage. Harris received a qualifying wildcard this year and now has 2 of the 3 wins required to go into the main Wimbledon draw. In football, Manx football clubs have voted down proposals to start the 23-24 season several weeks earlier than usual. The Isle of Man FA recently announced it was looking into the possibility of getting the new campaign underway on Saturday the 19th of August, one day before the start of the 2023 Manx Grand Prix. However, during the latest FA Council meeting last night, local teams voted against the suggestion. As a result, the new Manx football season is now due to start on Saturday the 2nd of September. Meanwhile, Manx footballer Eleanor Gawn will be the flag bearer for the Isle of Man at the 2023 Island Games in Guernsey. Gawn is the island's most capped player, with this year marking her 10th appearance at an Island Games or Inter-Island Games. Gawn will fly the flag during the opening ceremony on the evening of Saturday the 8th of July, with the event running until Friday the 14th of July. And finally, an Isle of Man shooting club has raised thousands of pounds for a local cause during a recent tournament. The Isle of Man Clay Pigeon Shooting Club held a charity event on Sunday the 25th of June. There was silverware up for grabs on the day, with Stan and Mike Cross, Neil Parsons and Will Rand winning the new Mike and Margaret Cross Cup, whilst the team of Amanda Huxby, Laura Harrison, Graham Smith and Sarah Cubban secured the Vorry Kelly Memorial Cup. On top of that, the club has announced the occasion has now raised more than £3,000 for Hospice Isle of Man.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
Inbound at Ronaldsway, the 5:45 Loganair from Manchester won't be in until 6:15. The 8:10 Loganair from Liverpool, the returning patient transfer planes delayed until 8:30. The 8:30 Loganair from London City inbound is cancelled. And last in tonight, it's the 9:25 EasyJet from London Gatwick. Outbound, well, you heard the 10:05 Loganair to London City cancelled outbound, so it's not coming back. The 6:15 Loganair to Liverpool is delayed until 6:45 outbound. And the 9:05 last out tonight is the EasyJet to Gatwick. On the roads, in Ramsey, temporary lights on Cumberland Road for resurfacing. Also, the swing bridge is closed to traffic and pedestrians. Works needed on the turning mechanism. Could take till the end of the week. In Laxey, Balacolissa Road's closed between Crotty Quill Road and Rensall Hill. In Derby, the Ballymena Road's got phase closures. And Port St Mary's got temporary lights on the Howe Road for substation work. Glen Road Colby's closed for resurfacing. Temporary lights on Ballacameen Road for resurfacing in Douglas. And there are stop-go boards on Cool Road near Eden Park, Braddon. Groudle Road's closed in Oncombe between Harbour Road and Fairway Close for some gas upgrade work. Packhorse Lane is closed for resurfacing in Baldrine. In Glen Helen, temporary lights on the TT course for tree felling. The Peel to Kirkmichael Coast Road's got phased closures. Also, East Quay Peel's closed between the House of Menannan and the Road Bridge for work on the roads and pavements. And in Kirkmichael, temporary lights on the TT course south of Kirkmichael for substation work.
H&HMotorcycles.im for all your motorcycle requirements. Southgate Industrial Estate, opposite Quayside Tyres. Call 665646.
Pastor Mai, good evening. It's 7 minutes before 6 on Manx Radio, live from Douglas in the Isle of Man. Small and medium businesses on the island are being asked to talk to their lenders if they're experiencing financial difficulties. The Group Chief Exec of the Manx Financial Group, which owns Conister Bank, has issued the plea after the Bank of England's decision to raise the interest base rate to 5%. Douglas Grant believes they should treat the rise as another reminder to review their existing lending structures to ensure they're prepared for further challenges.
The 5% is, I suppose it's the first time since pre the financial crisis in 2007 when at least investors are getting a proper return for their money, so there is good news in that. But as you say, for homeowners, no, it's not good news. Although again, I would suggest that if you've been a homeowner since 2007-8, you've had an incredibly long period of your mortgage at pre-norm levels. The historic norm for mortgages is 5%, so maybe we are seeing some kind of return to that normal level. But with inflation being so stubborn, you can see why the Bank of England has decided to do what it has done. That said, for businesses, it's a double whammy. There's no business in the world that doesn't have people or wasn't made by people, so therefore staff have expectations in this high inflation, high interest rate environment means that companies are going to have to pay their staff more. That'll be depressing profits. That'll have an impact on how they want to spend the money going forward, and we'll see a lot of companies actually defer the capital expenditure just to preserve working capital to see them through what appears to be a continuation of knock after knock we've probably been suffering since 2020, since the pandemic. My advice would be, if you're having any financial difficulty at all, go and talk to your lender. They will be more than happy to try and accommodate. They have obligations to help you if you've got any difficulty, whether you're this advice is irrespective of whether you're a business or an individual. Before you let things go too far, please talk to the lender.
The Isle of Man in 30 minutes. Update on Manx Radio with Andy Wint.
Since the United Kingdom left the European Union, there have been changes to rules about driving on the European continent. And in some instances, if you have an Isle of Man driving licence and not a UK one, you may need an international permit. Dave Moore now.
To drive in most European countries, the situation is the same as pre-Brexit. However, there are exceptions. If you hold a UK licence, then you can drive in Germany without needing an international permit. But if your documentation was issued in the Isle of Man, then, according to the United Kingdom government's website, you may need what's known as a 1968 IDP. They advise you check with the German embassy before travelling. The same advice applies to anyone with a Manx licence to check before driving in Croatia, Cyprus, Czech Republic, Hungary, Malta and Romania. They also recommend, if you're hiring a car, then check with the company you're booking the vehicle from if you need a permit. As the Isle of Man isn't covered by the 1968 Convention on Road Traffic, and not all European countries are party to the 1949 Convention on Road Traffic, which does apply to the island, a permit issued to the holder of a Manx driving licence may not guarantee the right to drive in European countries. An international driving permit costs £11 and is issued by the Post Office and may take a few weeks to be processed. Meanwhile, anyone driving in Europe on a Manx number plate is required to display a black and white oval GBM sticker on the rear of their vehicle.
That's it for Update tonight, compiled from the resources of Manx Radio's news department. Thanks to newsreader Chanel Suku, producer Rhiann Evans. After the news at 6 o'clock, the World of Art Spotlight with Howie Kane, the greatest hits at 6:30. Opera Hour with Ernie Thorne at 9, and Dave Moore is here tonight at 10 with The Late Show. Well, I mentioned a week today is Tynwald Day, a week on Saturday, the Island Games, and a week next Monday, it's the Southern 100.
WINT